Hi there, podcast lover. If you have a dark sense of humor and like your true crime stories paired with a glass of wine, then you need to check out our true crime comedy podcast, Wine and Crime, hosted by two Minnesotan childhood besties, me, Amanda.
And me, Lucy. Each week we dive into a bizarre true crime topic, pair that topic with a wine, and get into all the dirty details.
Wine and Crime is dark, fun, feminist, and perfect for satisfying your morbid curiosities with a healthy dose of humor. Join us as we chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash our worst Minnesotan accents.
Check us out at wineandcrimepodcast.com and listen now wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and I am here with Brandon Ward, who is, as I've been telling my friends, this Boston gay I'm about to do a deep dive on Provincetown with.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. This is going to be so much fun.
Now, listeners of this show may actually know you because you have a Bravo meme account, which is not how I know you, by the way. We're going to get into our backstory, which I'm not sure you even recall, but we do have a bit of one. But you're getting all these followers through this Bravo Bottoms meme account, and then now you've done like a spin-off podcast, which I want to talk about also. How quickly did the account like garner all these followers, and what do you attribute the blow up to?
Two things. One, we hit our first amount of following was probably like 3,000 followers in a weekend, was at BravoCon. My roommate, Mike, who also runs the account with me, went to BravoCon, met a ton of people, and that's where we gained a lot of following. But where we actually gained the most following was we were one of the first people to break Scandival after TMZ broke it. So even though it was a shitty situation for Ariana, we always have to thank her and Tom because we gained so many followers. We hit 10,000 the week that broke. So we were around like 5,000, and then we gained probably like 5,000 after that, which was back in March. And now today we are a few followers shy of 20,000, which is insane. Well, also, that's a lot of people.
I think the entire little cottage industry of Bravo businesses, whether that be a meme account or Bethany's podcast as of last week, I think everyone except for Raquel won.
I agree. And I do feel bad for her now because I feel like she's being exploited through Bethany's podcast last week, certainly. And, you know, Bethany's claiming that Bravo is the one that's exploiting her, when in reality, that's not the case at all. But everyone else has been winning. I mean, they're filming their season right now, and it seems like they're all having a great time, and Raquel's back at home alone. But I mean, we even were able to get a huge amount of followings. But then we started doing live shows because of Sandoval. We would host trivia with like 50 people every single week here in Boston to watch each episode. And then the reunions, just people were just showing up out of the woodwork just to come see the show.
Okay, so now we're going to get into you personally and my little bit of my obsession with you. So the people listening, you're listening to two people with perhaps the strongest local accents. We got this Boston accent over here, and I definitely have like a New York, Long Island accent. Yep. So people are really getting it from all angles, and this
polarizing.
It's very polarizing today. I'm assuming you were born and raised in Boston.
Born and raised, yep. I was born in Malta, Massachusetts, lived in Peabody, Massachusetts my whole life, and have lived in Boston my whole career.
Your whole career. And when did you make your first voyage to Provincetown?
Ooh, my first voyage to Provincetown was August 2018 for a day trip to Carnival. So like 2 years prior, my friend, one of my best friends, Jeff, had gone for work. He was working at a liquor distributor, and they were one of the big sponsors of Carnival. So 2 years later, he was like, you have to come with me. This was before, you know, we were making any sort of money. So it was a day trip only. And that's when the ferry was only like $60, $70 round trip, which we'll get into later. But went for the day, and I was like, this place is crazy, but it's the most magical place I've ever been in my life. The people were cool.
But how have you living in Boston? I mean, as a Boston gay, can I ask how old you are? Because we need to.
Yeah, I'm 31.
Okay, this is going to help. How are you not going to P-Town even at like 22?
So I actually didn't come out until I was 24. I was in the closet all throughout college, and then even 2 years after school. And then I was one of those gays that did the journey of not jumping right into the gay scene. I did kind of like hang out with all the straight girls, go to the straight bars, and kind of be like hang out with them. And then when I was 26 is when I started going to P-Town. And I remember it was just like this eye-opening. I like suddenly had gay friends, and they're bringing me to P-Town, and I knew it existed, but I didn't know the magnitude of like, it literally is the best place on planet Earth.
So here's the story of how do you remember our interaction?
Did we meet at T?
This is the order of events. In the summer of 2020, I, like everybody else, was bored. And I didn't go to P-Town that summer because like everything, I mostly just bounced between the Hamptons and Fire Island. And something that I'll do is I will search for things inside the podcast app. And I wanted to hear about people talking about P-Town.
Yes.
And,
okay.
Okay. And how would you describe it? You had this other podcast that was really, it was mostly you. And then sometimes you do it with your best friend, Jeff. Yep. What was the name of that show?
It was Vodka Soda Splash a Brand. Which in and of itself is just gay.
In those episodes, like one of the first episodes is basically like your guide to P-Town, but it's like the two of you are like really insane in it. Like, did you ever take that show seriously, or was it just for your friends?
Nope, it was just for my friends. The way it started actually was I was obviously bored during COVID, and that's when the Call Her Daddy drama hit the fan with Barstool and Alex and Sophia. And I was like, I just need an outlet to just kind of like talk and like do my thing. And people had said for a while that I should do a podcast. But then I realized like I'm just talking to myself really. So I needed like a co-host or a guest. So then I would bring other friends on. And at that time I was like, Jeff is the perfect person to do like a P-Town deep dive with, because we're not going there really this summer, or so I thought. We're not going there this summer. People ask all the time, like, I have straight girlfriends. I want to go there for a bachelorette party, like what to do. So I figured if I make an episode, put everything into one episode, people will know exactly what to do without me having to write an email or something. And it was a way of me of kind of just like making a joke of like, you're gonna have to listen to me for the next 45 minutes if you want to go and know what to do.
And then eventually, I mean, there are a handful of episodes, and then eventually sometimes you do solo ones. And then I figured out you were a Bravo fan because then you would start talking about Bravo shit, like kind of out of nowhere. But I was like, I'm really into this guy. I'm like alone in my bed, just like listening to you. And you were so funny and so...
Well, thank you.
Your descriptions were so vivid. Like I felt like I was going on this experience. And then the next summer, cut to me... I took my friend to Fire Island for the first time, and that time was so unique in that we rented a room in an Airbnb and immediately became best friends with two of the married gays who were like happened to be staying at the Airbnb.
Of course,
and we're still friends to this. Like we all live in the West Village. It was
love that.
Meant to be.
Yep.
So on the Saturday night of that trip, we're on our way to tea, and we see... Not abnormal. We see a group of like 8 guys all wearing matching Skittles t-shirts. And I say to somebody, one of you, taste the rainbow. Like just like as a nothing, like you just say dumb, you just as a...
Yeah.
And later that summer, or maybe even the next summer, I went back I was like, that guy, like who was he? And I see the photo of you and all your Skittle boyfriends. And that is when I DM'd you. And I think that was last summer. Where I was
that was
like,
last summer.
I was like, you're definitely not going to remember a stranger saying this, but me having like experienced all these things, like I very quickly put it all together. And that was when I DM'd you. And I was like, I love you. And then who knew that you'd become a Bravo celebrity in your own right?
Well, thank you. Yeah, that is crazy. And it's funny that this happened on Fire Island because now we're talking about P-Town. Now I do both like consecutively.
Well, this is why you're perfect for this, because I know that you're really born and bred Boston P-Town, but I think let's first kick things off with now you go to both. Mm-hmm. And so my very first question, and I think this was in my DM to you like last summer, was, how would you compare each of those experiences? Yeah, I guess let's start with that. And also as part of it, I'm very curious, how do you get to Fire Island from Boston?
Okay, so I'll start with that. How I get there. I actually go there one way and come home a different way. So it's a little confusing. So the way I get there is I leave Boston and then I drive like an hour and a half to New London, Connecticut, and take the New London Crosstown ferry over to Orient Point. Then we drive another hour and a half from Orient Point all the way to West Sayville, and then we take the West Sayville ferry obviously over to the Pines. Now, when we leave, I typically take like the 5:50 ferry out of the Pines back to Long Island. And at that point, it's quicker to just drive. It's like 3 hours and 50 minutes to go up and around, like all the way down Long Island and back up, than it is to take the Crosstown ferry, because the times for the Crosstown ferry aren't the best on the way home for me.
You're putting your car goes on the ferry.
My car goes on the ferry.
You drive right on. This is like when you go to Shelter Island, you drive on to the ferry.
Yes. Yep.
Like when you go to P-Town, are you all renting a house? Like, tell me your whole process.
So when we go to P-Town, always staying in a different place. Like I only have one friend that actually owns property in P-Town. So each time it's either an Airbnb or the P-Town Inn or Boatslip or some sort of bed and breakfast. So, I was there last week and I stayed at the Cape Colony for the first time. So every time you go, it's a little bit different where you stay. I've had some Airbnbs that I've loved. I've had some that I've hated. But it kind of makes the trip more unique in a way, because you're never used to the same thing and used to where you're going to be. Whereas on Fire Island, one of my best friends, he signed a lease for a summer share. So we have the house for 5 weeks. And so you're used to the same environment every time you go. It's the same. I stay in the same room. We order the groceries and we typically eat the same thing all the time. Whereas in P-Town, I'm never making dinner. I'm always eating, a slice of asparagus maybe, or eating at the canteen or the P-Town and chicken tenders. It's never really the same thing.
We're going, by the way, we're going deep on asparagus pizza and why it is such a thing. We're getting there. The guys, this is going to be a very long journey, so just like sit tight. We haven't even left we haven't even left New York yet. Like, we're not even there yet. So wait, so when did you first go to Fire Island? That time I saw you?
Yep.
And so 2 years in and you're already getting shares?
Yeah. So this is there's some prehistory here. So the owner of the Foxbury Inn in P-Town owns our house on Fire Island. And the reason we got connected to him is because I also used to run another Instagram account called the Boston Bottom, which has since fizzled out. And it used to be all about Boston nightlife. Pre-COVID, it was huge. But we started talking to the owners of the Foxbury and the owners of our Fire Island rental through the account, just through advertising the Foxbury Inn throughout the summers. And so it all comes full circle.
And is this the gentleman who I heard, because now I'm like an avid listener of your podcast, the proper Bravo Bottoms podcast. Yep. There was an issue with you were getting in trouble for throwing parties and you were going to track this gentleman owner down in P-Town and have words with him face to face?
Yes, I actually did. So the first time I was on Fire Island this summer, the AC stopped working downstairs and nobody came to fix it. And I needed to go up to him in P-Town and say, hey, listen, I'm going back in 2 weeks. I'm a sweaty girl. Okay. I need the room to be 62. So it's actually his husband that doesn't really like us. He likes us. So their husbands, they both are kind of in charge of different properties. The Foxbury Inn owner likes us a little bit more than the one that owns the Fire Island house, or that I should say oversees the Fire Island house. They also have another property on Fire Island on Baywalk that is one of the most gorgeous pieces of property I've ever seen. And the price to rent that house for 1 week is the same cost as it takes for everybody to rent the entire house we rent for the summer, that summer.
In Provincetown, paint the picture of really your lifestyle and the Provincetown, just an average experience. And then we're going to really get into the theme weeks and break everything down.
Yep. I would say the average experience is, waking up. We'll start with waking up because that's essential. You're waking up, breathing, recovering from the night before. The big thing to do is everyone will go get a coffee in the morning, at the Portuguese bakery, coffee pot, Joe Coffee. Get a breakfast sandwich and kind of just mull around. And then the big question.
What time is this happening?
That's probably between 10 and 11. For some people, some of the coffee pots open till 9 o'clock at night. Joe Coffee's not open all day. And then you start texting everybody. If they're not in your house, you're typically in a group chat with all your friends that are there. And the big question always is, are we doing the P-Town and pool or are we going to Boy Beach? And those are two very distinct things because the P-Town and pool has 2 bars. You can order food. Everyone's there kind of just like lounging in the pool on the day beds.
Let's explain where this is. P-Town and pool is all the way on the west end of Provincetown. Yep. It is actually past the Red Inn. Yeah. Which is my favorite place to go.
Oh my God, the Red Inn happy hour.
Can I tell you who I saw once at the Red Inn?
Who?
In 2021, we go in, and I am immediately told by how did I find, maybe it was like the cab driver from the airport. Somebody was like, I drove Jean Smart, the lead woman from Hacks, iconic. Yes. He goes, I drove Jean Smart to dinner last night at the Red Inn. She's staying there. Now, this is like, I wasn't this is just unsolicited information, which I am grateful to. I mean, he is telling the right person.
Oh, I'd be like, absolutely, thank you.
Oh, I've repeated this to every person I've ever come across in my life. And so, obviously, every year when we go, the question is, will Jean be staying?
Well, the view there, it's beautiful. It's stunning. I mean, they have painting classes there for a reason because there's nothing like watching a sunset there.
They have painting classes there?
Yeah, there's some sort of like art gallery. So when you are actually in the Red Inn, you know how when you go to the bathroom, there's the long wall of all those paintings?
Yes.
Those are all local artists that they are selling. And they also do some sort of painting class outside where those like Adirondack chairs are. And you'll paint the sunset.
That is unbelievable. It's so funny you're saying this because I read up on a bunch of the history before we hopped on, and I saw photos from like the 1950s of like people painting with easels like out on like what looked like just like a random dock because they this is one of the oldest by what year, maybe by like the 40s or the 50s, they had 6 art classes or 6 different art schools in Provincetown because it is an art colony. Like it is an artist colony. That is really what it's known for. And of course, the Portuguese. And we're going to get into the pirates. We're going to get into a little bit of a crossover with Fire Island. But, okay. So the question is, P-Town and pool.
Or Boy Beach.
Explain what Boy Beach is.
Boy Beach is your audition to go on Survivor. Like if you can walk to Boy Beach, you can survive anything. I always call it walking to tribal council because it is 100 degrees out. Okay, so you have to, not only do you have to walk the length of Commercial Street or however far you're staying, you can take a pedicab, you can do whatever, but it drops you off on the outskirts of the water. You have to walk
but
through.
It's actually Herring Cove Beach, right?
It's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but you walk past that and then you keep going through the wilderness. You go through marsh. If it's low tide, you're good. You just walk the whole way. If it's high tide, you are literally trekking through sludge and marsh and mud, and it's nasty. I highly suggest bringing water shoes. Like I wear my plastic Birkenstocks, but you're not looking for fashion here when you're walking there. You're looking for comfortability because your feet will be banged up if you do not bring the proper shoes. And even when you get to the beach, it's so rocky and sandy that your feet are so hot, it hurts.
Well, this is why this is why I never go to the beach in Provincetown.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Like I don't know why. Well, for me, like P-Town is not for the beach. It's for like everything else. Whereas Fire Island, there's nothing to do but beach. I mean, it's beach.
The beach. Exactly.
The beach is right. The easiest thing to do is go to the beach.
Yeah.
So what's your preference? It sounds like your preference is the pool.
My preference now is the pool. When I was younger, 26, 27, I didn't mind doing the walk. Now I'll do the walk once a season just to say I did it because we like to get it out of the way.
But wait, 1 second. We missed the point here. So the nickname is Boy Beach because it's Boy Beach. No, you can get to the beach, but it's just like mixed and straight people and whatever. It's to get to the gay section, aka correct. Boy Beach. That is when you're walking through the Provincetown equivalent of the meat rack.
Exactly. Yep. You will see a lot of things that you may have never seen before. Yeah, a lot of things go on in the dunes.
Question for
with
you.
The sun out.
What is more akin to the meat rack? And I think I kind of know the answer. What is more akin to the meat rack? What you just described, the trek getting to Boy Beach, or the Dick Dock?
Dick Dock.
Let's talk about the Dick Dock.
So Dick Dock is actually it's hilarious. Late at night, if you may have not met somebody at the bar, if you're leaving A House or Paramount, wherever you're leaving, and you're not quite ready to go home, you don't want to go to an after party, and you're there strictly to hook up, You walk down, you go to the Boatslip, and underneath the Boatslip, where T was just a few hours ago, you hear all these noises, and you walk through, and people are hooking up. Whether or not you see them or not it's so dark down there that you walk through and people just grope you, grab you, and that's how you just start.
And you can't see faces?
You can't really see faces because the moonlight is like hitting the upper deck, so it's not really coming through below. And the water comes up, so people are pushed all the way back against the wall sometimes. But also, like, if you did meet someone out at the club, and you know what happens on these trips is you're typically in a house with a bunch of other people, and you're sharing a room most likely, so you don't really have anywhere to go. Your safest bet is to just go down there, and you'll find a little crevice to do what you need to do and walk home satisfied.
If I'm going to call out one major difference, it would be the tea experience.
Ooh.
Do you agree? The experience
Yes.
of tea in Provincetown is quite different to the experience of tea on Fire Island. On Fire Island, tea is like an easy, and both are easy breezy, but you're never going to like miss tea in Fire Island.
Right.
Like it goes, I mean, maybe like the peak of it is maybe like a 6:30 p.m. But like it's going to keep going, and then it's going to move to like another you'll be moved to like the pool level, and then it'll be up at the sip and twirl, and like you're going to always be finding like the hordes of people, and like you'll generally know where to go, and the party can keep going. You never have
never stops.
And it will never stop. Maybe I never stayed until the end of tea. So I was in P-Town for like 10 days, just up until the other week. I was in P-Town the first week of August. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time in all of these years of going that I experienced them literally like, it was as if somebody literally like pulled the auxiliary cord out of the stereo. Like it was like, party's over, get the fuck out of here.
Yes.
I've never experienced this before. What the fuck is this?
No, and that's what I was used to. So when I went to Fire Island, I was like, there's 3 levels to this thing. Like I'm going to low tea, and then mid tea or fun tea is now everyone's calling it, to then sip and twirl, and then going home and then going back. Whereas in P-Town, the world stops.
It stops. This was what I missed. It stops at 7 p.m.
Yes, it's so early.
What is that about?
So it has to do with like, not liquor licenses, but like zoning stuff. And I will say if you ever want a good laugh, follow the P-Town community group on Facebook of all the locals that live there, because they're always griping and complaining about something. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. They don't want people. They think, and we'll talk about this later, as everything closes in P-Town at 1:00. Last call is 12:45. And the locals even think that that's too late. Whereas everyone else who are there all the time, I'm like, push it to 4:00. That would never happen.
But it also seems like restaurants close early as well.
They do everything. So if you're hungry at 1 a.m, you better hope. We'll talk about spiritus later. Yeah. But if you don't even make it in there, you better hope you have something at your house, because there's nothing open.
Clearly, it's just some ordinance, because they could make a killing. There are plenty of people. Like somebody was like, "Oh, it's because people need to either go to dinner and then they're going to go see the show they're seeing."
Yeah.
Or vice versa. They'll see, one or the other, like they'll reverse the order. But there's also a lot of people who would just stand at the Boatslip and dance for hours and drink, and they could make a killing.
Yeah.
Is it because it's a hotel and people are in the rooms, and that's why?
That probably has a lot to do with it, because I really think they could, because when they do extended tea until like 8 or 9 o'clock, like it was extended tea last Thursday, and then over the 4th of July it goes to like 9 o'clock, and then for Spooky Bear they do one extended last tea, and that goes until 9 o'clock, and it's packed the entire time. You can't move, because it's the only thing to do during that hour. Once 4 o'clock comes, nobody's on the street. Then once 7 o'clock comes, everyone rushes out because they need to go home and get ready. And the other thing about rushing out is, since everything closes at 1 o'clock, if you're going to a house, you need to be there by 10 o'clock. They open at 10, but you need to be there right at 10, because that line that can form gets so long.
You just mentioned A House. Let's talk about this. So A House is the Atlantic House. This is what is possibly the oldest gay bar in the world.
In the world, yeah.
Okay, the A House, aka the Atlantic House, may possibly be the oldest gay nightclub in the United States. It was built by Provincetown's first postmaster in 1798 and was a hangout for some of America's well-known artists in the 1920s. So
that is insane. And it smells like it too. They have not changed the wood.
I can't be in there for too long. I want you to explain, when to show up, and also how A House is like different levels and there's an outside.
Yeah. So I always recommend getting there at like 10 o'clock on the nose. I went there last Thursday when I was in P-Town for Carnival. The line at 10:30 went down the street and around the block, almost all the way up to Spiritus, that's a long line. It was going pretty quickly. So I recommend getting there at 10 o'clock. Even if there's a line at 10 o'clock, it's just because they haven't opened. It's going to be the same two people. It's going to be the same woman who's checking your ID and the same guy who is stamping your wrist, welcoming you every single time you go. You walk in and you're going to be immediately hit with the massive wall of humidity. If you're wearing glasses, they're going to fog up within seconds. You just have the urge to take your shirt off immediately. It's cash only, so that's a big thing. So make sure you have cash. The cover is $20, and they have an ATM inside. They also have an ATM outside. When you go in, everything is like lit up in red, and it looks like an old ship. And the smell is just so unique. It just smells like old wet wood in a way, which sounds gross, but it just has its own unique smell. There's a dance floor. There's a small little stage. Yeah, there's a small little stage area, which is where I always am. If I'm ever at A House, I'm always on that like little plywood stage next to the speaker. That's always my home. There's a DJ booth, and then the further in you go, there's another. So you could actually go two ways. You could either walk all the way through the crowd, go straight and go outside, or you could take a left right before you hit the second bar and go outside. Either way, they both lead to outside. So there's a 2-floor outdoor area. The uppermost floor has a projector outside. They play music videos and kind of all sorts of videos outside. And then on the lower level, there are heaters for when it's a little bit more chilly. And they actually just bought the property, I believe it was 2 years ago. The lower level of A House used to be blocked off. It only used to be a very small area, but the owner of the house next door was selling some of the land. So A House bought the land and blew out the fence. And so now there's a bigger outdoor kind of like grassier area, which is nice, because when I tell you the heat in A House is unlike anything I've ever experienced or anyone should ever experience. They need a thermometer in there. If you look at the AC unit that's barely working, it's fighting for its freaking life. It's sweating just as much as you are. Like, so
what you're describing, it reminds me the way the underwear party at the Ice Palace is intentionally, well, there was never AC in there literally until last week because Patti LuPone needed it in her rider. But no, like, I'm not making that up.
Well, that needs to be my rider.
But that is like the heat and the humidity inside the Ice Palace.
That's identical. The sweat that was just pouring off you. I tried to unlock my phone, and my phone wouldn't even recognize my finger hitting it because my hands were pruning. And I know it sounds gross, but when you are in that environment with just a flood of gay men, everyone, there's all types of guys. There's bears, twinks, otters, daddies, you name it, everyone's there. You see celebrities all the time. And everyone's just dancing to the music, and the music is like pop, house, funk, disco. There really is just no better feeling than just dancing with your friends. And everybody is soaking wet. So like, you don't have to worry about. I always laugh because like all the twinks, like, my hair, I just spent an hour and a half doing it. It's like, they don't even care. So if they don't care, then neither should you.
What now? I know that what is your favorite night post dinner? What's your favorite place to go? Is it A House or Paramount?
So I'm a Paramount person. I don't really look like it, but I'm a circuit queen at heart. Like, I go to circuit parties all the time. Paramount is really like my place and also you get a little more room in Paramount, and the AC works better.
What kind of music are we listening to?
You're listening to circuit music. So they always have like a good circuit DJ come in. So like Dan Slater, Ben Baxon.
So is this like EDM?
Morbido. It's EDM, like with pop lyrics. Sometimes there's no lyrics. It's more kind of like tribal beats and stuff like that. So it's really and most people don't like that. It's you either love it or hate it. There's really no like in between, but it's always packed.
The Paramount is inside the Crown and Anchor, which is a complex. If I'm trying to like explain this for people who haven't been, if you imagine
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no Fire Island equivalent. It's
Yeah, no, there really isn't. Think of just like a plot of land, and you walk through a gate, and
you know
right to your right is a
you know
piano
what the
bar.
analogy would be? Like a shopping mall in a way.
Yes, yes. Actually, that's perfect. It's like a big U-shaped. There's a restaurant, a piano bar, a hotel, very grungy bar called the Vault, and you can only imagine what people doing there. Then outdoor seating, and then there's a pool area in the back, and then next to the pool area, there's also the beach.
And one of those rooms is the Paramount.
Yes. Yep.
Which is the section, because I was just there and saw Dina Martina perform. Now, I don't know if you go to shows. I couldn't really gauge.
I have no, not really.
So you go to
typically
B-Town
go
and
around.
see nothing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And even on the days where we say we're going to be chill and go do a show, I'm always getting dragged somewhere because either some people are leaving that the next day and it's the only night I'm going to see them, or, I'm just like not in that mindset yet. But I don't think I've ever seen a show.
See, I have the exact opposite experience where we'll literally plan our week. Like, okay, here are the options for Monday. Here are the options for Sunday, Saturday, whatever. We're seeing Judy Gold. We're seeing Margaret Cho. We're seeing Melissa Ferrick. We're seeing, I don't know, like Bianca Del Rio has performed there.
Yep.
Jinx Monsoon did Spooky Bear the other year. It's a lot of it is centered around like either the Drag Race girls who are performing. Oh my God. We saw I'm not going to name this Drag Race queen, but we saw the most tragic show of our lives last year. And it's like somebody very well known. This is like a recent great, and it was tragical.
That is the worst. I mean, you think you're signing up for one thing and then you're not.
No. Before we're now going to segue into the theme weeks, but any final thoughts as to your Fire Island experience versus your P-Town? Like, I know that you just threw this big Barbie party, what did you do? You just advertised it on Instagram. You're like, hey, here's the address, come.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I've never not been on Fire Island where we haven't thrown a party. One of our housemates, one of my best friends, lives in New York. So he was kind of like our teacher in a way to show us what to do. So he's been for years. So he was able to tell us, this is how we're going to plan it. So he would make a flyer and we would all put it on our Instagram, and you kind of just hope people show up. And so since Barbie was so big this year, we decided to throw a Barbie party, and DJ John Ali, who I've known for years now, graciously decided that he would, DJ for us. And it was huge. It was, we've always thrown a party, and Fire Island to me is very community based. So it's all about like who you're there with. But one thing I will say is, for people that have not been to Fire Island, there's all these rumors that everyone there is so mean. New Yorkers are mean. They're nasty. They're rude. You shouldn't go because you're not going to have a good time.
Well, they say the Pines is like that.
The Pines. Yeah, sorry. The Pines is like that. I've never had that experience in the Pines. Everyone's been so nice. Like, you throw the party, people come up to you for days and they say thank you, or you go to tea. And I've met so many new people through going to the Pines. Whereas in P-Town, sometimes it can be a little bit cliquey. It's all really like who's in your group. And since you're at the bar and the music's loud and stuff, you're not really kind of like running away to go meet new people. And when you're at tea, since it's such a quick time frame, you're there with your friends, you're dancing, and then you kind of just keep the show going. So I have heard that people think that people in P-Town are a little bit more bitchier and standoffish than the Pines, and I do agree to an extent.
Can we do the Adam Lambert?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last time I was in the Pines was right after the 4th of July in P-Town, which that is not for the faint of heart. I don't suggest going from P-Town to the Pines back to back, but it is a lot of fun. So Saturday we were at the Pavilion, and one of our friends texted us and was like, hey, I'm in the Pines. I'm here with 2 of my good friends. I'm staying at my friend Adam's house. And we were like, oh, cool. We'll see you at the Pavilion, because that's what they were doing. They're like, we'll meet up with you at the Pavilion. I get to the Pavilion. It's probably like an hour and a half in, and I see my friend next to us. And I was like, that is so weird. That's Adam Lambert. And I said to my friend, who I had just texted to say that I was at the Pavilion, I was like, that's Adam Lambert. He's like, I know, that's like my best friend. I'm staying with him. And I was like, you didn't say it was like Adam Lambert you were staying with. You just said your friend Adam. And so then a bunch of my friends left. I was there with my roommate Mike, and like 2 other people, and we decided to leave, and we go home, and our friend, who's like the house mother, texted us and was like, hey, just so you guys know, like Adam Lambert's coming to our house. And I was like, what? Nobody prepared me for this. I'm sweating my ass off. I look a mess. Get to the house. It was just us housemates. And then Adam Lambert showed up and was one of the nicest people I've ever met. He was just so cool, down to earth, way taller than I ever thought he was, what I ever thought he'd be.
You had the funniest line saying, like...
We called him the linebacker.
Well, you said, like, he shouldn't be a pop star. He should be a linebacker.
He should. I could not believe my eyes. I'm 6 feet, and I was even looking up at him. It was like, what?
Was he wearing, like,
platforms? He was wearing a little bit of, like, a gladiator. He was wearing a gladiator sandal that had probably, like, an inch and a half. Maybe 2 inches, but nothing crazy. He was probably like 6'7".
He's not.
It was crazy.
He's not 6'7".
Well, I think in the show made him like that tall, but not like in real life.
Can I tell you, I was the way people are obsessed with Kelly Clarkson, and people will be like, "Oh, she was my number one from American Idol, like back in the day, the premiere season." I was that way about Adam Lambert.
He was great. He still is great.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I've seen him live. I've seen him live. I've seen him with Queen. I've seen him solo, like way back in the day in New York. To me, he is the male Lady Gaga. I mean, obviously Bowie was the male Lady Gaga, but I think because Adam Lambert and Gaga came out at the same time, they're forever married in my mind as the same. And also she wrote a song that he sings on his debut album. It was like a song that she never recorded. If you go back to his like discography, you'll see it's written by Stephanie Germanotta.
Interesting.
It's called Fever. It literally it sounds like it could be on the Fame.
Yep,
it sounds like it could be on Fame.
That's so funny. I also, he was super nice, but I wanted to pick his brain a little bit, but I didn't want to be like that person because it was like,
what were you going to pick his brain about?
Well, I didn't realize he was on Watch What Happens Live right after that with Kylie Minogue, and I am obsessed with Kylie Minogue. So I would have asked every question under the sun because I have like 1 degree of separation of her. When will I ever be in the room with someone like that again? Like, it was great to meet him, and we talked about his career and stuff, but like...
I'm no tech genius, but I know if I want my business to crush it, I need a website now. Thankfully, Bluehost makes it easy. I customized, optimized, and monetized everything exactly how I wanted with AI. Within minutes, my site was up. I couldn't believe it. Plus, Bluehost keeps me protected 24/7. No more worrying about hackers. I just relax and focus on my customers. So, whatever your hustle may be, secure your online presence in 2025 with Bluehost. Head to Bluehost.com to start now.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today.
I would have loved to have asked about her next.
Wow. Okay, let's get to the main event here, which are the theme weeks. The real differentiator here for Provincetown is that the summer weeks and even into the fall, they are all divided into theme weeks. Not every single week is themed. So if you want kind of like a more low-key situation, just go on an off week. The calendar is always available, like even like a year in, like you can see the weeks for 2024 already.
Right now.
For like better deals, less crowded, definitely getting into restaurants, I would say go on an off week. Don't go on like what is considered like a peak week. So there are so in June, there are like long weekends rather than an entire theme week. So in June, there's the International Film Festival. There's Women of Color. There's and then there's Men of Color, which strangely, they're not combined. I would say like, wouldn't it be more fun to combine? But okay, it's the way they do it. The first, I think, big theme week is Bear Week. Have you attended?
Yes. So I've attended Bear Week. I've attended a long weekend for Bear Week. The crowd for Bear Week, super nice. Everyone's there just to have a good time. And for people that may not know, a bear is considered someone like on the heavier side, kind of like bigger belly, hair all over your chest, big burly beard, kind of what you think like a bear would look.
Not a Pines boy. The opposite.
No, not a correct. Yep, not a Pines boy. The exact opposite of what.
More of a in fact, more of a Cherry Grove gay, maybe. If we might say, maybe.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, exactly. The crowd is a lot nicer than most of the other theme weeks.
Oh.
And I actually, when I went for Bear Week in 2019. I went to Boy Beach. That's when I was making that trek all the time. Go to Boy Beach, and we ended up sitting in front of these group of guys, and they were like, "Hey, can we listen to like the music that you're playing? Because like our speaker died, so like can we like kind of still sit near you?" And we were like, "Yeah, absolutely." And to this day, they're a few of our best friends. We keep in touch with them all the time, and I still talk to them. I just saw one in P-Town last week.
That's so sweet. Okay. We've got Memorial Day weekend, which is there are 3 women's lesbian weekends or weeks, whatever. There's Memorial Day. There is Girlsplash weekend, which is I think more of like a partier thing for the girls. Yep. That's in July. And then Women's Week is in October. The difference between these 3, girl, I don't know. To me, maybe we're talking ages. When I think Girlsplash, I'm thinking 20-somethings, like drunk.
That's what I think too. I think like Girlsplash is more like almost equivalent to the 4th of July week, like Circa week for gay men. I think it's more party centric. Memorial Day, I believe, is more kind of like opening of the season. The weather's still kind of like iffy out, and you kind of just like there to go out to dinner and have fun. And then what was the last one? Women's Week?
Women's Week.
Yeah, I have no idea what happens.
That's right. Well, what I do know is that for each of these 3, they're bringing out like lesbian comedians. There's like lots of parties. It's like that type of thing that you want. Like I would want to see like the lesbian comedians and like all that. To me, that's very fun. Like that's what I'm like here for. I wonder if Girlsplash, how you're describing it as like a circuit, the July 4th. I bet it has a Dinah Shore feel, which that is like a crazy, which don't even ask, but I actually worked it twice. Like I was a writer for this lesbian independent website, and we went as press twice to Dinah Shore, which if anybody knows anything about me, like that it is the most unlikely place for me to wind up. And I was there twice. So I've done some very interesting things in my life. Okay.
That's hilarious.
Okay. Carnival. Let's go deep on this, because this is the thing that I've gone to a handful of these. I've never done Carnival. And this is the thing I absolutely want to do next year. It's Carnival is Mardi Gras. Like that is
Carnival is P-Town Mardi Gras. That's describing it perfectly. So the theme for this year was Land of the Toys. The theme for next year is Renaissance and Revolution, which you're going to have to kind of think outside the box for that.
Like those like Renaissance, those like the people who reenact the...
That's the first thing that comes to my mind. I think what a lot of people are going to do is probably do a take on Beyonce's Renaissance World Tour. But that will be a year out. So I don't really know 100%. You could also do like, I'm going to call it now.
This is a bad theme.
Yeah,
this year was a great theme. Land of Toys, Candyland, brilliant theme.
Oh, Candyland was so fun. I wore my Skittle stuff actually.
People were dressed as like, because you can find all the photos, like sugar plum fairies. I saw one person dressed as like a gumball machine. This is brilliant. I've lived in New Orleans for the past couple of winters. And so I've lived through, like, it's Mardi Gras is like a season. It's not just like a day. Yep. And I've also done New Orleans Halloween this past year. And costuming is the entire culture of New Orleans. People have costume closets. And people will work on their costumes in New Orleans for like 6 months. This is the way people prepare for Carnival.
Exactly. This is, if you are not wearing a costume, you are not doing it right. So leading up to Carnival, I always suggest booking a house early. No, this is for across the board for P-Town. If you know you're going, or if you know you want to go, book a house early, see if you can get it non-refundable. If you decide not to go down the line, you decide not to go. But for Carnival, your entire house is coming up with a costume together, typically. So like this year was Land of the Toys. You were seeing a lot of Slinkies, a lot of Trolls, a lot of Toy Story, and people put thought and effort into this. This is not like, where you're going to a theme party one weekend, you buy everything on Amazon the week before and you kind of just throw it together and say, here we go.
This is not a summer house. This is not a summer house party.
Correct. Right. Yeah, this is not a summer house party. This is like the party of the summer. And I always say that in P-Town, Carnival brings out not just, gay men, it brings out families, locals from all over the Cape Cod area. I drove in on Thursday and there were people lined up in their lawn chairs at 9:30 in the morning up and down Commercial, because by the time the parade started at 3:00, you could not move up and down the street. It was just a sea of people, and everybody is dressed to the nines in these extravagant costumes. And then different businesses will actually have different floats that will go down the parade route. And you'll see Mrs. Richfield, you'll see all sorts of, drag race, queens, and you'll see local people, you'll see all sorts of businesses repping their business in the parade. And it's so fun to watch because everyone is getting in it. Everyone's reaching for the beads, the candy that they're throwing. Kids are having so much fun. It's really just a day of chaos.
And what else, aside from the one day where we have the parade, what else is happening throughout the week?
So the week, typically rentals for this week will they'll start Saturday to Saturday. So people get in Saturday, do the typical A House or Paramount or whatever. Saturday and Sunday. Monday, there's a huge pool party at the Brass Key. So the Brass Key will do a massive pool party. Last year, Dorinda Medley was actually supposed to host it.
No.
Yeah. She actually got sick, and they emailed us the night before on Sunday, and they were like, hey, just so you know, Dorinda will not be coming, unfortunately. And I thought it was a joke. So I went up to someone that worked there. I was like, was she actually supposed to be here? And she was. So they do have different celebrities that will come and host that event on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday are kind of low key during the day. Either go to the pool, the brewery, the beach.
What do we say? Carnival is how do I say it? Would Carnival be the hottest ticket week of the entire summer?
Yep. Yeah.
What is a hotter ticket? July 4th week or Carnival week?
That's a good question. But Carnival for sure. So Carnival for the 4th of July, you have a lot of people flying in because it's like I said, it's circuit week. So you have all these like circuit queens coming in from all over the place. That's their one time out of the year where they're going to go. For Carnival, you have everyone hightailing it out of Boston, hightailing it out of Massachusetts, in the Cape, New York, LA, DC, Miami. Everybody and their brother is coming in for Carnival week. You will see all walks of life, all sorts of people, even families will stay overnight. Straight couples will stay overnight. And you don't really get that for the 4th of July. For Carnival, that's their one thing that they can look forward to because they know they can put so much effort into it and it'll be rewarded.
Before we close out Carnival, I know that our very own Billy Eichner was there for Carnival.
So I didn't see him this year, but I have seen Billy Eichner, I think maybe 3 or 4 times now in the past. Each time I see him, he's a little bit of a mess. One time I saw him passed out on someone's stairs. I saw him
like a stoop, like outside a house?
On a stoop, yep, totally just like sleeping. I've seen him get denied from a party once because he was so drunk. And then last year we kind of played a little bit of a joke on him. It was, when the Bros, it was when everyone knew Bros, the movie was coming out. And so he was kind of like very much in his head. My friend went up to him and was like, hey, can you do me a favor and just like take a picture of like my friends and I? And totally acted like he had no idea who he was. And it pissed him off. He like rolled his eyes. He's like, sure. But nobody acknowledged who he was. We were like, thank you. And just like, let him go.
When I'm picturing him on the stoop, it's like Billy was literally on the street.
It was Billy on the street in IRL. It was like Instagram versus reality.
You mentioned Bros. Isn't it interesting how P-Town really hasn't been featured in a lot of media? Like, I think of Bros, of course, that scene in Bros. And then, of course, there's American Horror Story.
Yep.
Which was in winter, which was like interesting in its own right. There's a show called Hightown on Stars.
Yeah, I couldn't get into it.
But girl, that's it.
Nothing. And truth be told, I've actually shopped around a show here and there to do like a Summer House P-Town spinoff. But networks aren't interested in having an all-gay cast right now. So
don't you think that also Fire Island, that is the missing? If they did a spinoff in Fire Island, wouldn't that be brilliant?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the reason why they might not is because there was that reality show Fire Island back in the day that was not successful on Logo, although I watch it all the time. I thought it was pretty good. But people would watch it. It's just the networks aren't willing to kind of like see if people are going to watch it yet.
This is so interesting. You pitched a show set in Provincetown, like to a production company?
Yeah, so truth be told, I actually was like approached to do a reality show here in Boston that got shelved. And the way it turned out, this was like early 2021. So nothing was open yet. Didn't know how we were going to get permitting for filming. The network was going to be Bravo. It's the same casting company that does that does a new Roni and that does Salt Lake City.
Shed.
They wanted me to make my own cast of all gay men. So I made the cast of gay men. They pitched it to the network, quote unquote, and the network said we need a little bit more mix of female and straight male in the mix. So then I ended up being mixed in with a different cast of another gay male who's one of my best friends, and then straight couples. But they shot it down, and then since then I've had emails from different companies through that opportunity that will be like, do you know of anyone, or do you have any, can you pitch anything? And I always will still pitch a P-Town show of all gay men, and every time they come back and they're like, they don't want to do it.
But especially like when you have Summer House, Martha's Vineyard, you're already on the Cape. Like, why don't we do something different? Like, there are no gay people on your network except for now Jenna Lyons, thank God.
Right, exactly.
I feel like there really is something. And fucking Andy is a Fire Island guy. Like, he knows what they're sitting on.
Yeah, we're on the cusp of it. I can feel it. I know something is coming. Even if it's like a weekend or two here down in P-Town, or do like a smaller limited series for like a theme week, like a Carnival week. You lead up and you do a 4-episode series of that. Just something to put it on the map. But even
that's the show. Like Bear Week, Carnival Week, 4th of July, like your Spooky Bear, that's your series. And like 2 episodes for each trip. If they can stretch out 5 episodes in the Berkshires, I think you can stretch out 2 episodes of Carnival.
Exactly.
That's an 8-episode series.
Yeah, and people will love it. People, I think gay culture is so interesting to a lot of people. They don't, they don't really know what it entails. And like kind of like gay men live such different lives than a lot of other people. So I feel like gay men are so successful. I think people would want to see successful queer men go and kind of just have fun on the weekends.
We mentioned Billy Eichner. He's like definitely a familiar face. Any other, like in my mind, I think of like there's like Murray Bartlett, like lives in P-Town.
Him all the time. Yep.
He mentioned P-Town in his Emmy acceptance speech for The White Lotus. He said to my P-Town family, I love you. He lives there, right?
He lives there. Yeah. Yep. So you'll see Murray Bartlett all the time. Billy Porter, Billy Eichner, Carson Kressley, kind of going more niche. Gus Kenworthy is there a lot.
Ryan Murphy, I believe.
Ryan Murphy, and his house is gorgeous. His house is right across from the American Horror Story house.
This makes a lot of sense.
By. Yeah, he actually just got renovated, and it's really, really, really beautiful.
The comedian Judy Gold, who I love.
Yep.
Leah Delaria. She doesn't live there, but she owns the club.
Yeah. She owns a club. Love the club. I've seen Rosie O'Donnell there.
You saw Rosie in P-Town or at the club?
In P-Town. She was riding by on a pedicab.
I'm upset.
Rosie O'Donnell, she was waving away.
I'm obsessed. By the way, speaking of those pedicab drivers, the people who work in P-Town, a lot of those locals are doing like 3 jobs. Like your pedicab driver, I've actually never taken a pedicab, but like they're all around. The pedicab driver is also like working, like cleaning your guest house.
Yeah.
And like maybe serving you drinks.
Yep.
Like they're all like on triple duty.
Yeah, they are the hardest working people I've have seen there, and they are up all hours of the day.
Have you seen John Waters?
I have not. He is one person I have yet to run into, and I saw someone post the other day that they ran into him, but at the beginning of Carnival actually, and I have not seen him.
And you checked Billy Eichner off your list this year already.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of like Instagram famous people, and some like up and coming actors like Johnny Sillaby.
Oh, I love him.
People like that. Yeah, he's there all the time, so you'll run into a lot of people like that.
So, July 4th week, can you kind of when we say circuit, when I hear circuit, I think Pines Party. I think Puerto Vallarta. Those like gays against gays. Remember that gays
Over
against
COVID.
gays over COVID. This is
Yep.
what I think. As a girl, because I'm dumb, can you paint me the picture of what
Yep,
the person is like?
So the man will typically look ripped to the gods, chiseled six pack, biceps bigger than you can imagine. The saying always goes, not anything upstairs. You know, like they just look stupid. You know, they have like a chiseled jaw, perfectly coiffed, a great set of hair, like 6 feet tall, and just like a beautiful, beautiful man. So honestly, if you are not used to that type of crowd and you're not used to being in that setting, it can make you feel extremely self-conscious.
Okay, and they're just there to party.
And they're just there to party. And that's why a lot of people don't like to go, because some people can be snooty and rude, which that's happened to me in the past, but you just got to throw it back to them. Like, you were at the same party, paid the same amount for the ticket that I did, having the same experience. Get the hell away from me. I don't care if you look like you are a GQ model. I'm not. You think you are. Move on. But typically the crowd is a little more snippy, and that's why some people don't like to go. The music is like uns house music.
Oh,
you know,
God. I already hate it. I hate it. Okay, we're gonna move on away from July 4th. It's terrifying me. Okay, Spooky Bear, which is AKA Halloween weekend. I'm going this year. Will you be there?
I am going to be there. Oh, we have to meet up.
This is going to be our moment. This is going to be our big moment.
This is my favorite weekend. This is my absolute favorite weekend every single year.
Talk to me about Spooky Bear. What can I expect? I'm going with a group of friends. Do we all need to be, one of whom is very costume oriented and into, she made Lady Gaga's meat dress by hand for our New Orleans Halloween this past year. She's incredible. God. Yes.
Wow. What, that is crazy. That's crazy. Wait, but this is so exciting. So costumes are big at Tea Dance. I'm not a huge costume person, but everybody is dressed in costume. So Tea Dance, a lot of people be dressed in costume. I don't really wear one out at night because I get too hot and sweaty, and it's just like too much clothing for me to keep track of. The reason why it's so fun and so magical is because you've had time away from the summer. So Labor Day's over. Most people don't really make the trek down there to go for like a weekend, on and off weekend, because the weather's getting a little bit colder. But you all know that everybody is going for Spooky Bear. Like, the way they do Halloween is insane. You know, a house will be completely packed every single night, more so than always. Tea Dance, since it's a little bit more cold out, so the way, I don't even think we've described like what tea looks like, but tea has a huge outdoor deck and then a smaller area inside to dance. Since everyone is so cold and their, costumes running around, everyone's kind of pushed into the inside area. And gay people always joke that gay summer ends when Halloween ends. And it's so true. Like, the reason why everyone's so happy the entire weekend is because this is your last good weekend until the following season. So you want to go out with a bang. During the day is not really as hectic and as much to do. So a lot of people will kind of stay at their houses with their housemates or go to a bar and stay inside. So if you'll go to like the brewery, for example, the P-Town Brewery is a great place to go during the day. They play great music. They also do a flip cup tournament. I believe it's on Friday, the first Friday of that weekend, which is like a big thing for everybody to go to. And it's kind of more like a restaurant-y type of trip, opposed to, you can't go to the beach, can't go to the pool. So you kind of go figure out what bar people are going to go to. And
most businesses are open still.
Yes. Yep. And this is like the last, well, Folly is the last where everything shuts down. But like typically after Spooky Bear, that's when most people will call quits for the season.
Have you been, I quickly want to give a small business shout out. My favorite shop in Provincetown is Adam's Nest. Have you ever been there?
I have not. I've heard of it, but I've never been there.
It's a t-shirt shop. And I finally met the owner. My friend knows the owner because she's always buying like their stuff. And you can get like, go to the website and you'll see all the different interesting stuff that they have, whether it's like a hat or like they have the cutest, most creative t-shirts. And I was chatting with the owner, Adam, of Adam's Nest, and I was saying like, oh, how late you open? And he mentioned they closed down right after Spooky Bear. Yep. And so anybody who's going, I would recommend just like pop into this store. It's tiny. It's tiny, tiny. But they
I'm
have,
gonna have to go.
if you want merch, like something, a piece of memorabilia from P-Town, like you got to go there. All right, let's talk about Holly Folly.
Yep.
My friend Brendan Davis from the podcast Come Through Queen, one of my faves. If you don't listen to it, you should. He went by himself to Holly Folly. I think he said he took like 3 buses and a train. He had the craziest, most insane fucking journey to get there. His recap was hilarious. And he said he loved every single second of it.
I've only done Holly Folly once. I believe I'm gonna go this year because I've been dying to go back. And I love Christmas and I love P-Town. So it is just like it's the cutest weekend. A House is the only like place to go out at night if you want to go out. So A House is, so that's easy. You're only going there. During the day, the canteen, not to be confused with the Pines, the canteen in P-Town actually has a whole outdoor venue where they have like a, what is that, like Swiss cheese called? A raclette. They like have like, yeah, it's like a raclette, I think it's called. They have like this cheese that they heat up and you put it over like bratwurst and fries and chicken and stuff. There's like a whole section of that type of stuff. They put out fire pits. They have like mulled wine that you could drink. They also last year they had a small outdoor skating rink.
Wait, is this the holiday market or is a holiday market in a different area?
This is the holiday market.
Oh, cute.
Yes.
It's that canteen. Oh,
yep.
sweet.
And they also have all of the local shops from down the Cape come out and kind of have like a table where they sell all local stuff, which is great. So you do that during the day. When I went for Holly Folly, we really didn't do much during the day. My friend stayed at the Stowaway, which was a great place to stay. It was a B&B. They had 2 huge living rooms, so we kind of just were like playing the piano, playing the guitar, hanging out in the living room during the day, and then at night you kind of get dressed up in your Santa gear, your slutty Santa stuff, and you go out to A House and kind of just like live the night. But warning, it's fucking cold. The breeze from the ocean is like none other at that time of year. So if it's 30 degrees, it's going to feel like it's 10. It's like really, really cold.
Did you do the Jingle Bell Run, which is a Santa run? It's basically you're in a bathing suit with a Santa hat and you're running.
Yeah, I did not. I did not do that during the day, but some will say I did that when I was leaving A House because I didn't bring out any sort of pants or anything. I kind of was just sprinted there in a t-shirt and like a Santa cape and Santa shorts and then ran right home.
Oh, I do want to mention one other long weekend they have. Oh, no, it's a week-long event. They have a trans weekend, a trans week, which they call it the Fantasia Fair. And the first one was held in 1975, which makes this the longest running transgender event in the world. And
That's amazing.
I was reading that a lot of trans conferences model themselves after this Fantasia Fair, aka Transgender Weekend.
Yeah.
I just think this is
wow, that's amazing.
Amazing that it dates back that long.
To the 70s. Wow, good for them.
What do you know about the history of Provincetown?
The history that I know is I know that the Pilgrims first landed there and they thought they were in Plymouth. And so they decided to keep going.
They signed the Mayflower Compact in Provincetown.
Yes. And there's to commemorate that, there's the Pilgrim Monument or the P-Town Monument. When you think of P-Town, you think of a picture of like that big, tall monument. That's like what it commemorates.
You're hilarious. It's not the P-Town Monument. It's the Pilgrim. It's right. You can see it from the Pilgrim House. It is the Pilgrim Monument. And there's also the Provincetown Museum, which is like right there. And they have a whole like LGBT, like that's what's cool about P-Town is it's a town. Like there's shit to do. Like there's museums, like you can learn the history. I mean, don't learn the history of P-Town from listening to this. Like go to the museum in P-Town, which I think is real. And I think it was closed during COVID, but the Pilgrim Monument, I think it's like 200 steps. And there used to be like a thing where you can run up and down the steps.
It's open now.
Okay.
They have that. I don't know what it's called, but it's like a gondola that takes you from the bottom to the top.
Oh, like a ski chalet?
Yeah, exactly. They bring you right to the top. And I think it's free of charge. Don't hold me to that, but I believe it is.
Do you know the history with like the Portuguese and all of that?
I don't, but I love the Portuguese bakery. It's one of the best places you can go there.
It is. So it's I mean, well, I don't know how deep we can get into the history, but basically the Portuguese were among the first settlers there, and they befriended the gays.
Ooh.
But apparently, I think it was quite racist at the time. So it was really, so long as you were rich and white, so long as you were white, like man or woman, they let you come and like you could stay with them. But I think there was a bit of, I mean, it's Boston, it's racist. Like, it's,
right. Yeah.
know.
Like, come on.
And among the early not the early settlers, but like Tennessee Williams,
Yep.
he was there writing. Tennessee Williams later described the 4 groups who make up Provincetown's residents. He belonged to the first 2, the flamboyant gay summer visitor and the elite artist and writers who would come there to write, point, dance, or act. The third were the gay kind of wash ashorers who like came in and stayed year round to work or like run the businesses.
Yep.
And then the fourth type were like the Yankees, the Portuguese, and like the mixed race native gays. There were squatters. There is an interesting history, but like you really got to like piece through it. There were squatters, there were pirates. I know that the East End was developed first, and initially it's funny because the West End is so much, in a way, it's a lot nicer. Now it seems more like
West End.
It seems more shishi, but that was sort of like the more rough area.
Interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. By 1916 there were 6 art schools. A lot of people were coming from Greenwich Village and New York. And I guess we'll leave it here that there was an amateur theater company called the Provincetown Players, and eventually in the 50s, the Boston Globe ran a 1-story headliner. The biggest art colony in the world is Provincetown.
Wow.
And that's what kind of like cemented it as like a known destination.
Yeah, look at that.
And then, the drag queens and all that came later in the 50s.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Any final thoughts? Is there anything, I feel like we probably left some stuff out, but anything else you want to say? Like, do you have a favorite restaurant or a favorite guest house?
Ooh, I would say my favorite restaurant is the Red Inn. I mean, it's, like you said earlier, it's impossible to get a dinner reservation, but definitely go on the earlier side, eat there for the happy hour. If you do get a dinner reservation, the steak there is to die for. It's so good. The P-Town and Brewery, I love too. I think that's a great place to go and hang out. My favorite place to stay, I would say, probably was the Stowaway over in the East End.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't stayed there since, but it was probably the most memorable. Other than that, I would say, it's something you have to check out once in your life, whether you're gay, straight, however you identify. It's a place that you have to go, either if it's just for a day, if it's for a week, or if it's just for a few days. It's one of those places that everybody always talks about, everybody always knows. It's, super famous, and it's stunningly beautiful, and there's always a good time to be had.
Brandon Ward, tell people about the podcast and the Instagram account. Is the podcast like getting big? Like what is bigger, the Instagram account or the podcast?
So everyone can find us at the Bravo Bottoms on Instagram. That's where we started, everything, all of our memes, all of our, news kind of being like the Bravo du Moi in some sort of ways. That's where we amassed our following. And then I kind of took a back burner on my personal podcast because I really just needed a host. And then when Mike and I started doing the Instagram, the perfect segue next was to do the podcast. So we have the Bravo Bottoms podcast. The podcast is growing actually a lot bigger. We're starting to see more things come through for ad revenue that we haven't seen before. The Bravo Bottoms podcast is not just Bravo, I want to say. We intermix all of our personal stories. We do a lot of personal stuff, not just Boston gay stuff, but our own personal lives, dating, boyfriends, going out.
That's the stuff where I think you guys shine, because it's different. You have the Bravo as an anchor, but it's your personalities that make it shine.
Thank you.
I love when you're talking about when you recap your Fire Island trip, when you mention Adam Lambert, like that's where I'm like, my ears are perking up. Like I'm not perking up at like our new Roni recap.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So that's where, and now we've just introduced a new segment starting last week and going forward, where we kind of will break down 3 to 5 big kind of like pop culture stories. So it's not just Bravo that's happening throughout the week. So
tell everybody where they can find you, follow you.
You can find me at the Bravo Bottoms Instagram. You can find my personal account, Brandon_on-brand on Instagram and Twitter, the Bravo Bottoms on Twitter, and the Bravo Bottoms podcast, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I love you, and I'm going to see you at Spooky Bear.
Yes, you will. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. This was so fun.
This was so fun.